I always figured my wife, Clara, and I were just one of those couples, you know, the kind that can finish each other's sentences. I chalked it up to 7 years of marriage, just being totally in sync. But I was dead wrong. It wasn't intuition. It was something else entirely. She can literally hear my thoughts. Every last one. And I found out on the one day I desperately needed some privacy in my own head, the day I was planning to tell her I wasn't happy anymore. It was a painfully normal Tuesday. I was just sitting in my car in our driveway, engine off, staring at the front door. For the last hour, I'd been rehearsing a speech. A horrible, life-destroying speech. The words felt like sandpaper in my mouth, even as thoughts, Clara, this isn't working. I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. I think I want a separation. Everything inside me screamed against it. We had a good life, a comfortable one. On the outside, we were the perfect couple. But inside, I just felt this creeping hollowness. The laughter wasn't real anymore. The comfortable silence between us just started to feel empty. I kept telling myself it was a phase, the 7-year itch, but the thought had taken root and was starting to feel like a fact I couldn't run from. Finally, I dragged myself out of the car, my heart pounding against my ribs. I walked in, and there she was in the kitchen, humming along to the radio, stirring a pot that smelled like home. She gave me that easy, familiar smile that used to completely floor me. "Hey, you," she said. "Long day?" "The usual," I lied. We ate dinner. We talked about her day at the art gallery, my day at the office. It was all so normal it felt like I was watching a movie. All the while, that speech was on a loop in my head. How do I even start? Do I just blurt it out? Maybe I should wait for the weekend. I was being a coward, and the thought was like a blistering neon sign in my mind, coward. After dinner, we were on the couch, some dumb sitcom on the TV. The air was thick with everything I wasn't saying. I took a deep breath, and the first part of the speech formed in my mind, crystal clear. "Clara, we need to talk." Before I could even open my mouth, she turned to me. Her face was pale, the smile long gone. Her eyes were shimmering with tears. In a voice that was barely a whisper, she asked, "You're not in love with me anymore?" Time just stopped. The air vanished from my lungs. I stared at her, my mind a roaring, empty cavern. How? How could she possibly know that? I hadn't said it. I hadn't even muttered it under my breath. My mind scrambled for an explanation. Did I leave my browser open? A note in a pocket? A text message? Nothing. It was just a thought, locked safely inside my skull. Or so I thought. What did you just say? I stammered. "You've been thinking it all evening," she said, a single tear making its way down her cheek. "That you want a separation. That you're a coward for not saying it." She repeated my own internal monologue back to me, word for word. Not the general idea. The exact phrasing. The world tilted, not with love this time, but with a terrifying, gut-wrenching vertigo. This wasn't a good guess. This wasn't a lucky shot in the dark. It was something else. Something impossible. The days that followed were a complete blur. At first, I was obsessed with finding a logical explanation. I turned into a detective in my own house. I accused her of planting a listening device. I tore our living room apart, searching for some microscopic bug, something so advanced it could read brainwaves. It sounds nuts now, but at the time, it felt more believable than the alternative. She'd just watch me, her expression a mix of hurt and exhaustion. "There's nothing to find, Alex," she'd say quietly. My next theory? I was going crazy. Maybe I was talking in my sleep or muttering to myself. I set up my phone to record myself at night. All I captured was 8 hours of me snoring. The denial was a fortress I'd built around myself, but Clara, or her ability, kept finding the cracks. One morning, I was getting ready for work, silently fuming about my boss, Henderson, who'd taken credit for my project. I was mentally composing a scathing resignation letter. Asterisk, Dear Mr. Henderson, I quit. P.S. You're a weasel, asterisk. Clara walked in with my coffee. She stopped, looked at me, and said, Don't call him a weasel in the letter. It'll make you look bad. I dropped my toothbrush. The fortress crumbled into dust. It was real. It was actually, impossibly real. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd planned vacations and argued over bills, and had a conversation from another dimension. How long? I asked. Always, I think, she confessed. But it used to be fuzzy. Like a radio station with bad reception. Snippets of feelings. But with you, especially the last few years, it became clear. Like you were broadcasting in high definition. She thought it was our special connection, an intimacy other couples didn't have. She thought when I was thinking about her birthday present and she suddenly said, You know, I've always wanted to learn pottery, it was just us being perfectly in sync. She'd learned to live with it, to filter it. She'd been navigating my unfiltered mind for years, giving me the illusion of privacy. This revelation didn't bring peace. It brought a whole new kind of terror. My mind, the last private place on earth, was an open book. Every fleeting, dumb thought. Every flicker of irritation. Every stupid fantasy. Every dark fear. She heard it all. I went down a rabbit hole. Typing my wife can hear my thoughts into Google made me feel like a lunatic. The results were a weird mix of sci-fi forums, paranoid ramblings, and then, something else. I found posts about twin flame telepathy and soul connections. They presented it as this beautiful, magical gift. But the rational part of my brain screamed for a real explanation. Of course, mainstream science is, to put it mildly, skeptical about telepathy. For over a century, there's been no replicable, conclusive proof it even exists. Still, the idea persists. I found controversial figures like Rupert Sheldrake, who argues telepathy is real, especially between people with strong emotional bonds. The mainstream scientific community heavily criticizes him and his ideas are often labeled as pseudoscience, but the thought that our bond could be the cause resonated. Then I found something that made my breath catch. I read about preliminary studies using advanced neuroimaging, like magnetoencephalography, MEG, that claim to find distinct neural signatures during telepathic tasks. It's critical to note that these findings are highly controversial, far from conclusive, and do not represent any kind of scientific proof of telepathy. One 2025 study even came from an institution with Alien Institute in its name, which tells you a lot. Still, seeing that someone was trying to research it, even on the fringes, was a strange comfort. I also stumbled upon a podcast, The Telepathy Tapes, which explored cases of non-speaking individuals with autism who seem to communicate this way. While the podcast was popular, it has been heavily criticized for promoting pseudoscience, with many experts pointing out that the methods used, like facilitated communication, have been scientifically debunked. The claims are based on anecdotes, not robust evidence. This research didn't give me answers, but it gave me a word for what was happening. And if it had a name, maybe it could be understood. Maybe we could learn to live with it. #### section 3. Building a new reality. The breaking point came about a month in. I was a ghost in my own house, barely eating or sleeping. The constant effort of policing my own mind had ground me down. I retreated into a mental shell, trying to think in colors and sounds, anything but transmittable words. To Clara, it must have felt like I'd just vanished. The vibrant, chaotic stream of my consciousness was replaced by a crushing, static silence. The intimacy she had cherished was gone. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I packed a bag. The thoughts were no longer quiet, they were screaming. Asterisk, I have to get out. I need space. I can't live like this. Asterisk, I walked into the living room, duffel bag in hand. Clara was on the couch, not looking at me. She wasn't crying. She just looked defeated. I know, she said, her voice flat. Just, before you go, can I tell you what it was like? For me? Before you went quiet? I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. I owed her that much. I heard the stupid things, she began. I heard you wonder if a hot dog is a sandwich. I heard you mentally sing the wrong lyrics to every single song. I heard you panic every time you thought you forgot to lock the door, even when you were already in bed. A small, sad smile touched her lips. But I heard the other things, too, Alex. Last month, when I wore that yellow dress, I heard you think, asterisk, she looks like sunshine. Asterisk, when my gallery showing was a flop and I was trying to be brave, I heard you thinking, asterisk, I'm so proud of her for trying. She's the strongest person I know. Asterisk, I heard you worry about my dad's health. I heard you make a mental note to pick up my favorite ice cream just because I'd had a bad day. I heard every single loving thought you tried to hide. She finally looked at me, her eyes full of a profound sadness. You think your mind is this dark, awful place because you have selfish or angry thoughts sometimes. Don't you get it? Everyone does, but I heard it all. The whole symphony. The brilliant, the boring, the beautiful, and the bad. And I loved the whole song. Now all I hear is silence. And it's so much worse than any angry thought you could ever have. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so obsessed with my lost privacy that I never once considered her side. She'd been living with a fire hose of my consciousness aimed at her, and instead of drowning, she'd learned to pan for gold. She found the love inside the stream of mental junk. And I had turned it off. In trying to protect myself, I'd built a wall and created the very distance I was now desperate to escape. I dropped my bag. That was the real beginning. It wasn't easy. We had to set rules, not just for our words, but for our thoughts. We came up with mental quiet time. If one of us wears headphones, it's a signal, asterisk I'm in my own head. Please give me some space. Asterisk it's symbolic, of course, but it's an agreement to respect a boundary, even an invisible one. I had to learn to let go. To stop censoring myself. The first time I let a petty, irritated thought through, asterisk why can't she ever put the cap back on the toothpaste, asterisk, I braced for a fight. Instead, a few seconds later, I heard her yell from the bathroom, sorry about the toothpaste, followed by a wave of what I can only describe as amused affection. My thoughts weren't nuclear bombs. They were just thoughts. Fleeting and not always representative of how I truly felt. Clara knew that all along. I was the one who had to learn it. Our communication evolved. It became layered. I might say, I'm fine, but she could hear the anxiety underneath. And instead of calling me out, she'd just squeeze my hand. A silent acknowledgement. It was a new language, built on total, terrifying, and ultimately, beautiful transparency. It's been a year since that day in the driveway. Our life is anything but normal. There are still hard days, days I'd kill for the simple illusion of privacy, days a stray thought causes a ripple of tension. But we navigate it. Together. This strange, impossible ability I thought would end our marriage is actually what saved it. It stripped away every pretense, every polite little lie we tell. It forced us into a state of radical honesty. My fear was never really about her hearing my thoughts. It was the fear of being truly known, and then rejected. But I discovered the opposite. To be fully known by someone, with all your flaws and contradictions laid bare, and to be loved not in spite of them, but with them, that's a kind of intimacy I never knew was possible. The hollowness I felt is gone, replaced by a connection so deep it doesn't need words. Because for us, it no longer has to rely on them.